Pride Month is a time to celebrate the various identities that make up our wonderful and diverse community. It is also a time to reflect on and honor the powerful contributions of those who've come before us. We stand on the shoulders of giants. James Baldwin, Larry Kramer, Bayard Rustin, Sylvia Rivera, and Marsha P. Johnson. To them and countless other trailblazers, we are humbly indebted and forever grateful. If you'd like more information on the movement or recommendations on how you can help, go to blacklivesmatter.com/partners. In these dark and difficult times, we hope that this episode brings you a little bit of joy and light.
Welcome to this special Pride Month episode of the Big Gay Fiction Podcast. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Will. Audiobook narrator Joel Leslie has never met an accent he didn't like. His properly posh vocal stylings have been put to very good use in the historicals written by Cat Sebastian. Today, he's sharing some of the work he's done on a cozy mystery that I particularly enjoyed, the book Hither Page.
Joel, welcome back to our Pride Festival.
Hello, happy Pride again.
Again.
I'm very happy to be here.
And
it's like the parade went round the street, and now we're coming back to Jeff's house, and here I am.
I like how that sounds. Yeah. Or we're coming back to your house.
It's a long parade from your house to Orlando.
So this time out, you've picked a book that is completely different from your first book.
Completely different. I wanted to pick something that I do in an accent because that's my usual bread and butter. But primarily, I really thought it would be fun to highlight the work of Cat Sebastian because not only is she an insanely brilliant writer, but she manages, I think I've done 5 or 6 books for Cat now. And each book that I've done for her sort of focuses on a different facet under the LGBTQ spectrum. And what's extraordinary about what she does is she writes historicals. And people usually shy away from the challenge of writing gay romance in historicals because it's pretty difficult to come up with a plausible happy ending because of, the realities of history. But she always does it in a way that never feels false or insulting to the reality of the times that people would have had to live through. And what I love is she always writes books with an underlying deep, important issue. I did one that had a transgender character, one that had bisexual characters, one that dealt with an interracial gay relationship and what that meant historically. This one we're going to talk about, Hither Page, deals with PTSD after World War I for 2 men. But it's like she'll choose something in that world of an underpinning of depth, and then on top of it create these beautiful, frothy, wonderful, witty, fun characters that are so leveled and so lovely to bring to life that it never feels like it's an issue book. And I think that's incredibly impressive. They have depth, but they're just brilliantly entertaining and just such a joy to narrate. And my favorite thing as a reader, personally, is cozy mysteries. That's my kind of crack. And when she wrote one, I went after it like a rabid dog, and she let me do it with her. And it's right after World War I. One of them is sort of you get the sense that he's a sort of a spy, and he ends up at this small British village with a country doctor. And it's this lovely, cozy mystery. But both of them are dealing with the emotional fallout of having been in the trenches and having been in World War I. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant. And there's some marvelous supporting lesbian characters in it too that were great fun to voice and have a great arc, a great story arc. But anyway, I think she truly is a great author who brings to light all the aspects of the rainbow flag, and I really think that's extraordinary. And I'm lucky to voice for her, so that's what this is. Hither Page.
James had stepped wholesale into the role of country doctor with the relief of stepping into a warm towel after a cold bath. But imagining it through Page's eyes made him feel like a child who had been caught trying on his father's shoes. "I would have thought you'd have a housekeeper and a hot dinner waiting for you," Page remarked, hanging his hat and coat on pegs behind the door. A village woman comes in every morning to clean out the surgery, and twice a week to make a couple of suppers and tidy up downstairs a bit. James peeled off his own coat and hung it beside Page's, then put his black bag on the floor beneath. The bag, too, had been the old doctor's. He stepped into the kitchen, then lit the stove and put the kettle on the hob. But tonight it's tinned soup and cold sandwiches. Page shot him a frankly flirtatious glance. "Are you inviting me to stay for supper?" James hadn't thought that far. He glanced at the can of soup that sat beside the hob. He had meant to warm it up and eat it alone at the kitchen table while solving that day's crossword and listening to the wireless. That was how he spent his evenings when he wasn't invited out to dinner or called away to a patient. He was dimly aware that he wanted Page to be several hundred miles away, Moscow or Bolivia or wherever people like him plied their trade, but also simultaneously in his bed. The middle ground of sharing a meal with him alone in an empty house seemed dangerously intimate. "I'm not sure whether I'm inviting you for supper or trying to treat a hypothermia case," he said, striving for lightness. "Here, I'll go lay the fire, and you pour the water when it boils. Tea is in the cupboard, cups are by the board in the sink. Can you manage, or are your hands numb?" Page's expression was amused. "You do realize I'm no stranger to uncomfortable conditions, don't you? I didn't spend my youth snug by the fire." James was struck anew by the fact that he had a spy in his kitchen. He half expected his windows to shatter with an exploding shell, the air to fill with the smell of smoke and death. He ran his hands over the rough surface of the old refectory table, keeping his gaze locked on the faded wallpaper with its cheerful roosters presiding over baskets of improbably grouped flowers and fruits. "Neither did you," Page added. "We were both very busy for a few years there, I dare say. But the war is over now," he said softly, and James looked over, startled, unsure how Page had known precisely what was in his mind. He supposed spies made it their business to read minds. "You're safe," Page went on. "It's not about that," James said, knowing he sounded petulant. "I'm not worried about my own safety." And rationally, he wasn't. It would just be extremely convenient if his entire brain could get on board with that knowledge. He swallowed. "I was going to get filthy drunk tonight." "Don't let me stop you. But what were you going to be, drinking about?" James debated a convenient falsehood, but more deception was the last thing he needed in his dealings with Leo Page. "I don't like your being here." A shadow passed across Page's face. "You aren't meant to. It's an ugly business. Sometimes I don't like it much myself. But it's necessary. Like cleaning out the chimney." "I don't mean the—" He gestured vaguely. "Spycraft, or what have you. What I don't like is what it means. It's as if the war didn't end and never will end. How do we go on knowing that people are willing to blow one another up again and again? Cut one another to bits? Twice in half a century, Page. Are we going to keep doing this?" "No," Page said swiftly, as if he had already thought about this. "Now there are atom bombs. That changes things." James thought he was going to be sick. "That's not comforting." "It's not meant to be. Listen, Summers. War isn't the worst thing people are capable of. The people I killed in the war, most of them at least, were Nazis. The men you patched up, you did it so they could go out and kill more Nazis. Some things are worth the blood and guts." "I know that," James protested. But how could he explain that sometimes when he shut his eyes, he saw nothing but death, nothing but the piles of gore and flesh that people turned one another into? "My head is a mess." Page stepped closer. "That's all of us, mate." "No, I assure you that I'm farther gone than most, and I wasn't even a soldier. All I did was, as you said, stitch people up. What right do I have to—" "No." Page laid a hand on his shoulder. What you're not going to do is talk about shell shock or combat fatigue or brain fuckery as if it's a special treatment that you haven't earned. James huffed out a startled laugh. I know that. Thank you. Shut up. Page was very close now, his hand still heavy on James's shoulder. He smelled of cigarette smoke and hair pomade, second-hand shops and shaving soap. All James needed to do was lean in, angle his head, and they would be kissing.
So I'm so glad you decided to highlight Cat. Will loved Hither Page. I loved so much the other book that you did in her other series with Gentlemen Always Keep Score. And that's the one with the...
It's one of my favorite books I've ever done.
Yeah, just extraordinary.
All of her books are stellar, but Gentlemen Never Keep Score also just blew my mind.
Yeah, not just a homosexual relationship, but you added the interracial, and it was just like incredible.
And I got to voice Idris Elba for half a book, which was kind of... I was like, even I feel sexy as Idris Elba.
And I'm so glad you highlighted some historical in here too, because as you said, they're much more difficult to tell those stories in that time, and Kat does it so well.
Yeah.
So between your two nom de plumes, you've voiced hundreds of books and no doubt hundreds of LGBTQ characters at this point.
We're over 200 LGBT books at this point, definitely. Which
is just incredible. What does it mean to you as a gay man to get to bring voice to all of these characters?
It means an awful lot. The thing that excites me so much about being a narrator for this kind of material is that I always imagine doing it for someone who's trying to come to terms with coming out, and they can have something on their iPhone and be listening in their headphones, and it can be a very private, liberating experience for them. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like before it can help them on their journey and give them confidence and hope and optimism and inspiration. And I think that's really amazing. And so especially the YA that I get to do, it really hits me in the feels for that reason. But simply getting to give these characters a happy ending that certainly, when I was 14, 15, 16, wouldn't be nearly as plausible, is an incredible gift. And I'm also really thrilled that the quality of narrators bringing life to this work is really special. You've got really talented guys who make the commitment to the genre and really do justice to it. And I think I'm in a very privileged band of talented gentlemen who are thrilled to voice these stories. So I'm very, very lucky. And I think it's amazing to have so many allies out there that don't even fall under the LGBTQ flag, but are passionate allies and embrace these stories and care about them and care about the people they represent. And that's kind of mind-blowing in a way. It's really extraordinary. I think it's really lucky and really wonderful when you discover new queer authors and new, queer voices and things like that. So recently I got to narrate a book called The Astonishing Life of August March by a new queer writer named Aaron Jackson, who I'm obsessed with. And I'm so excited that there's new, I consider him a major literary voice coming on the scene, and to sort of be on the radar to get to work with those authors. And his book isn't, necessarily what you would call a gay book, but he heard my voice and he heard something, and we have this weird, we're bonded together by camp, we have discovered. He was also someone whose mother sat them down and watched them watch Auntie Mame at age 11, and you're like, what, mother, what were you attempting to accomplish? No 12-year-old needs to memorize Funny Lady, but I did. So we both kind of had this interesting thing, and he heard that in my voice, and I heard that in his writing, and it's this. It gets to extend the family. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's a special privilege to get to give voice to own voices material and to characters that don't get as much attention in mainstream as they should, but they're starting to, which is amazing. It really does matter a lot to me.
And because of you, August March is like very high on my TBR, because if you're raving about it, you've brought me some really good books. So I know I need to read
so
that.
Glad.
So
yeah, it's really fun.
Tell everyone how they can keep up with you online to keep track of all of the books that you put out.
The easiest way, I kind of mash my Joel Leslie stuff and my Joel Frumpkin together in social media together. I keep two separate names just for branding for people that are looking for material or not. So if you're looking for LGBT material, you always know Joel Leslie is what that material is, and Joel Frumpkin is the other stuff. But you can find me on Facebook under Joel Leslie Frumpkin, and Joel Leslie Fro is my Twitter. And yeah, so that's primarily me.
Fantastic. We'll put that in the show notes along with the links to the books we've talked about here, obviously. Thank you again for spending a couple of segments with us for the Pride celebration. We very much appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for asking me. It's a real honor. Thank you for everything you guys do.
We hope you've enjoyed this special Pride Month bonus episode. Remember that the pride that we have is something we carry within us, no matter the time of year. So be proud, be strong, and above all else, be you. Thank you so much for listening. For a complete rundown of this month's bonus content, go to biggayfictionpodcast.com/pride2020.
Big Gay Fiction Podcast is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. You can find more shows you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. New episodes of this show are available every Monday wherever you get your podcasts. You can help support this show with a monthly pledge through Patreon. For more information about joining our community and the bonus content we deliver, check out patreon.com/biggayfictionpodcast. I'm Kurt Graves. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.